There is a sacred illusion that has governed the human mind for thousands of years, an illusion that God is somewhere else out there, above the clouds, hidden in holy books, locked behind rituals, or found only in the presence of saints and prophets. We were taught to look up, to kneel down, to chase something grand and far away. But what if the greatest secret of all, the secret whispered in every ancient text, the truth behind every miracle, is that God has never been outside of you? Not for a single breath, not for a single heartbeat. God is not above you. God is not around you. God is not hiding in a temple or buried in the sand. God is not an entity floating in the heavens, counting your sins or judging your failures. God is not a being. God is a presence, a vibration, a frequency, an energy. And that energy lives inside of you. It pulses in your chest, not just as a heartbeat, but as a rhythm of cosmic intelligence. It rises with the sun through your thoughts. It flows with your breath as inspiration. It sings in your silence and whispers in your intuition. It is the light behind your eyes, the warmth behind your love, the stillness behind your peace. You don't have to go anywhere to find it. You only have to remember, you have never been separate. You've only believed that you were. We were born into a world that confused form with truth. We were told we were bodies. We were told we were names, histories, roles, genders, religions, nationalities. We were given identities to wear like masks in a theater. But behind every mask is the same light, the same essence, the same eternal current of being that has no label, no boundary, no limitation. You are not a body with a soul. You are a soul having a brief, sacred, passing experience in a body. And that soul, your soul, is not disconnected from God. It is God. Not the entirety, but the expression, the drop that contains the whole ocean, the flame that reveals the nature of fire. You are the divine, individualized. And if that is true, and it is, then everything about your life begins to change. Because no longer do you search for peace outside of yourself. You no longer chase love from others like a beggar. You no longer strive to be good enough, holy enough, worthy enough. You realize that you already are. Because how can that which is divine be unworthy? Your worth is not negotiable. It is not determined by your past. It is not reduced by your mistakes. You are not here to earn divinity. You are here to express it, to remember it, to embody it. When Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within you, he wasn't being poetic. He was describing a metaphysical reality, that the infinite lives in the finite, that the source is not out of reach, that the door to heaven swings open inward. The great mystics of every age have known this. Rumi wrote, "I searched for God and found only myself. I searched for myself and found only God." Lao Tzu said, "Knowing others is wisdom, knowing yourself is enlightenment." The Upanishads tell us, you are that. The Bhagavad Gita echoes, the self is the friend of the self. Even science, if you look closely, is beginning to whisper this truth, that consciousness is not an accident, but the ground of all being. And so the invitation of your life is not to find God. It is to remove everything that blocks your awareness of God within you. The ego is the veil. The past is the noise. The story is the distraction. But the truth has always been here, still, silent, waiting. Like the sun behind the clouds, it doesn't argue, it doesn't force, it doesn't punish. It simply waits for your willingness to remember who you really are. And who are you? You are not your name. You are not your job. You are not your resume. You are not your trauma. You are not your bank account. You are not your followers, your likes, your clothes, your failures, or your successes. You are not the story others wrote for you. You are not the story you wrote to survive. You are the awareness behind the story, the still presence watching the movie of your life unfold. You are not the storm. You are the sky that holds it. You are not the pain. You are the presence it passes through. You are not the fear, you are the faith it tries to hide. You are not your ego. You are not your wound. You are not your past. You are the divine energy expressing itself through this temporary costume of form. And once you remember this, not just intellectually, but spiritually, cellularly, everything shifts. You stop looking for validation. You stop playing roles. You stop performing for love. You stop carrying guilt like a cross on your back. You stop needing to be fixed because you realize you were never broken. Your healing does not begin when the world changes. It begins when your perception changes. When you stop seeing yourself as separate from the source of life and begin to live as if you are one with it. Because there is no place you can go where God is not. Not because God is everywhere, but because everywhere is in God. Because existence itself is God in motion, love in form, spirit in rhythm. And your soul is a thread in that vast, endless tapestry of being. And this means that your life is not random, your pain is not pointless, your existence is not small. It means that the breath you are taking right now is holy. The moment you are in right now is sacred. The body you inhabit is a temple of energy, vibrating with ancient intelligence. You don't need to wait to die to return to God. You only need to awaken to the fact that you never left. Heaven is not a location. Heaven is a level of awareness. And hell is not punishment. Hell is the illusion of separation. It is living as if you are alone, as if you are unloved, as if you are lost, but you are none of those things. You are found, you are held, you are guided, you are loved beyond comprehension, not because of what you do, but because of what you are. You are light wrapped in skin. You are infinity in motion. You are God, dreaming of being human for a little while. And when you awaken to this truth, forgiveness becomes easy because you recognize that the one you're forgiving is also the divine in disguise. Compassion becomes natural because every person you meet is you in another form. Love becomes unconditional because it's no longer a transaction, it's a transmission. And peace becomes your default because nothing can disturb the stillness of the soul that knows it is one with the all. So the next time you look in the mirror, don't just see a face, see the infinite gazing back at itself. The next time you feel alone, place your hand on your heart and feel the presence that has never left. The next time you pray, don't send your words into the sky. Listen for the answer rising from within. You are not trying to become divine. You are remembering that you already are. And this remembrance, this return, is the beginning of true freedom. You don't need to fight for what already belongs to you. You don't need to beg for what you already are. And you don't need to wait for someone else to awaken. First, you are the awakening. You are the permission slip. You are the spark that lights the fire of remembrance in others, just by being who you truly are. When you walk into a room fully grounded in your divine essence, you don't need to say a word. Your presence becomes the sermon. Your peace becomes the teaching. Your authenticity becomes the miracle. Because when you remember that God is not outside of you, you stop chasing and start radiating. You stop searching and start serving. You stop trying to become and you begin to be. You begin to live like the lotus rooted in the mud, but blooming in the light. You begin to live like the sun, not asking the world for permission to shine. You begin to live like the ocean, deep, powerful, and undisturbed by the surface waves. This is not about religion. This is about revelation. This is not about dogma. This is about direct experience. You don't need a middleman to access the divine. You only need stillness. You only need silence. You only need the courage to sit with yourself until the noise fades and the truth rises. And what is that truth? That you are not alone. You never were. That everything you've been searching for, love, peace, worth, wholeness, is already within you. That God is not a being in the sky. God is the being within all beings. The eternal I am that speaks through your breath, moves through your hands, sees through your eyes. When you hold a newborn child and feel your heart crack open with wonder, that's God. When you stand in nature and feel awe wash over you like a baptism, that's God. When you forgive someone who never said sorry and feel the chains break in your chest, that's God. When you sit in the silence of your own soul and feel the warmth of presence, that is God. God is not something you understand. God is something you remember. And every moment of your life has been guiding you back to that remembrance, even the painful ones, especially the painful ones. Because pain is often the chisel that cracks the shell of illusion. Suffering is the wake-up call. Rock bottom is often the beginning of real clarity. We don't wake up because life is perfect. We wake up because we realize perfection was never the goal. Presence is. Peace is. Truth is. And truth is this: you are not separate. You were never cast out. You were never abandoned. You only forgot who you are, and now you are remembering. The spiritual path is not a journey to someplace new. It is the return to where you've always been, beneath the noise, beneath the story, beneath the roles. It is peeling back the layers of identity until only presence remains, until only love remains, until only God remains. And when you touch that space, when you live from that space, you become a vessel, a living temple, not a preacher of truth, but a presence of truth. And the world does not need more preachers. It needs more presence. It needs more people who have remembered who they are and live accordingly with gentleness, with power, with purpose, with peace. You were not put here to suffer through life hoping for a reward in the afterlife. You were not sent here to prove your worth or earn your salvation. You were born to express divinity in form, to create, to heal, to love, to serve, to awaken. You are the eyes through which the universe sees itself. You are the hands through which love touches the world. You are the voice through which truth sings. And the more you align with that awareness, the more your life begins to reflect it. Not because you manipulate circumstances, but because you change your vibrational point of origin. You stop operating from fear and start operating from faith. You stop reacting from ego and start responding from essence. You stop surviving and begin thriving. This is the alchemy of awakening. When you stop seeking God as something external and begin realizing that every breath is a prayer, every moment is sacred, and every being is divine, your life becomes a living meditation. You find the sacred in the ordinary. You hear the infinite in the silence. You see the face of God in the mirror, not out of arrogance, but out of awe. And this is what the world needs now, not more beliefs, but more beings. Not more ideas, but more embodiment. Not more preaching, but more presence. A planet full of awakened souls who no longer search for light outside, but choose to become the light inside. Because when you light up from within, you give others permission to remember their own flame. When you walk as divinity embodied, you heal without speaking. When you love from your center, you transform the atmosphere around you. And that love, that God energy, has no limits. It is not reserved for saints and sages. It is the birthright of every soul. It is the essence of every child, every stranger, every enemy. There is no one who is not divine. There is only consciousness that has forgotten itself. And when you meet someone who has forgotten, your role is not to judge, your role is to remind. To remind by your presence, to remind by your compassion, to remind by your peace. Because the moment you see God in another, you activate the God in them. The moment you forgive, you invite another into their own freedom. The moment you speak truth without fear, you become a lighthouse in the fog. And the fog is thick right now. The world is noisy. The world is afraid. The world has built a shrine to the ego and forgotten the altar of the soul. But even in this darkness, the light within has not dimmed. It only waits for your awareness to return. So come home to yourself. Come home to the truth that has always been waiting beneath your breath. You are not missing. You are not flawed. You are not behind. You are not unworthy. You are divine. You are radiant. You are the energy of God dancing in human form. You don't need to chase enlightenment. You need to embody what you already are. So breathe, not just to survive, but to remember. Breathe in your wholeness. Breathe in your innocence. Breathe in your connection to all that is. And when the world tries to distract you, return to this breath. Return to this moment. Return to the energy that beats your heart and births the stars, because that energy is you. You are the temple and the flame. You are the question and the answer. You are the seeker and the source. And when you live from this knowing, life becomes a sacred flow. Challenges become opportunities to deepen your truth. Loss becomes a portal into love. Conflict becomes a classroom for compassion. Every experience becomes a step in your return to the truth. The truth that God is not outside of you. God is not in the sky waiting for you to be perfect. God is not a judge watching you through a lens of sin. God is the breath inside your breath, the stillness behind your thoughts, the love that you feel when all the noise fades. You are not separate. You never were. You just forgot. And now you are remembering. And in that remembering, you are reborn. There comes a moment in every soul's journey when the search loses its meaning, not because the search failed, but because the search was always a mirror leading inward. The maps you followed, the teachings you clung to, the gurus you revered, the rituals you performed, all of them were stepping stones, sacred, yes, but not destinations. They were never meant to lead you to something outside of you, but to bring you back to the holy stillness within. The silent sanctuary, where nothing is missing and no part of you is exiled. This moment, this breath, is your arrival. Not in time, but in truth. When you release the idea that you must become something more to be worthy of the divine, you enter the dimension of being. And being is not passive, being is not empty, being is a cosmic radiance. It is a living alignment. It is the holy reverence that comes when you stand in your center without effort, without masks, without needing to prove your light to a world that's forgotten its own. You don't become divine by reaching upward. You become divine by sinking inward. And as you do, you realize that stillness is not the absence of noise. It is the presence of God. It is the space from which all miracles arise, the field where form and formlessness meet. In that space, you remember that you are not here to master life like a test. You are here to merge with it like a dance, to move in rhythm with the intelligence that breathes stars into existence and still takes the time to open a flower. There is no arrogance in this knowing, only awe, only humility, only the peace that comes when you stop trying to contain the infinite within your mind and instead allow your heart to become its home. For the ego seeks to grasp, the soul seeks to surrender. The ego builds identity out of pain, out of story, out of past. The soul simply is unburdened, eternal, whole. And every time you choose presence over performance, truth over illusion, love over defense, you dissolve another layer of separation and step more fully into the light that has always been waiting. You don't need to heal yourself into worthiness. You only need to remember that the light you long for is not something to earn, it is something to uncover. And as you uncover it, something begins to shift, not just within you, but around you. The world starts responding differently. Not because the outer world changed, but because your inner signal did. Like a radio that finally tunes to the right frequency, you begin to hear a different song, a quieter song, a truer one. You begin to recognize guidance in what once felt random. You begin to feel supported in ways that defy logic. You begin to trust life, not because it always makes sense, but because you no longer need it to. You begin to understand that the energy that created this universe, the energy that shaped galaxies, composed the laws of nature, painted the skies with sunsets and orchestrated the tides, is not distant from you. It flows through you. It animates you. It breathes you. And when you live from this awareness, your actions become expressions of love instead of fear. Your relationships become altars of growth instead of battlegrounds of control. Your words become vessels of truth instead of weapons of validation. This is what it means to live as the soul and not as the mask. This is what it means to walk the earth as divinity incarnate. You no longer see others as threats or strangers, but as reflections, sacred echoes, each one offering you the chance to practice remembrance. And the more you remember, the more you soften. The more you soften, the more you heal. And the more you heal, the more others heal just by being in your field. This is the quiet revolution of awakened presence. It changes the world not through force, but through frequency. And this frequency is not loud, it's not desperate, it's not defensive, it's gentle, like the light that enters a room without knocking, like the wind that moves the trees without needing to be seen, like love that simply loves, without agenda, without demand, without needing to be returned. This is how the divine works, not as a ruler, but as a presence, not as a command, but as a current. And the more you surrender to this current, the more your life becomes a river instead of a struggle. Not without pain, not without challenge, but with an unshakable foundation of peace that whispers, even in the storm, you are not alone. The storm does not mean you are forsaken. The wound does not mean you are broken. The doubt does not mean you have failed. It means you are growing. It means the veil is thinning. It means you are being called to remember, again, not in concept, but in embodiment. Not just to know that God is within, but to live as though it were unmistakably true. To live as though the breath you take is divine intelligence entering your body. To live as though every act of kindness is a prayer in motion. To live as though your very presence is a sanctuary where others remember their light. This is not spiritual idealism. This is radical realism, to see beyond the illusion of fear and touch the deeper truth of love that holds it all. Because what is God, if not love itself? Not the fragile love that says, only if you earn it. Not the conditional love that keeps score. Not the fleeting love that changes with behavior, but the eternal, boundless, all-pervading love that simply is. The love that has no opposite. The love that includes every shadow. The love that redeems without punishment. The love that burns away the illusion of separation with a single glance. And you are here to be the mirror of that love. Not in perfection, but in presence. Not by trying to become it, but by removing everything that blocks it. Every time you let go of judgment, you make room for that love. Every time you forgive yourself, you open the window to that love. Every time you choose compassion over condemnation, you become a vessel for that love. Not just for others, but for yourself. Because you too are worthy of the grace you give so easily to others. You too are worthy of returning home to yourself, not someday, not when you're better, but now. Now, when you are still tangled in your questions. Now, when you are still healing your wounds. Now, when the light inside is a flicker instead of a flame, that flicker is enough. That breath is enough. That moment of truth is enough to begin again. And beginning again is the most spiritual act there is. Because every moment offers the possibility of awakening. Every moment is holy ground when you walk it with awareness. And every time you choose to remember, even for a second, that God is not outside of you, the veil thins a little more. Until one day, you stop looking for the divine and you simply become it. There is a sacred humility that descends upon the soul when it no longer needs to shine, not because it doubts its light, but because it has become the light. This is not a performance. This is not the ego's idea of enlightenment. This is the quiet authority of one who has stopped seeking approval and started walking in alignment. A person who no longer needs the world to recognize their divinity because they have already recognized it within. This is the true birth of power, not control, not domination, not force, but alignment. Power that flows without resistance, power that heals without effort, power that liberates without preaching, You do not need to argue with darkness. You only need to turn on the light. And the light within you does not flicker with the opinion of others. It does not waver in the face of rejection. It does not vanish when things fall apart, because it is not built on circumstance. It is built on truth, eternal truth, the kind that existed before your story began and will remain long after your story ends. And this is what ego can never understand, that it is not your job to become something more, but to unbecome all that is false. Not to gather more things, more achievements, more spiritual credentials, but to surrender, to shed, to simplify, to become so empty of illusion that only truth remains. The ego resists this. It clings, it calculates, it compares, it builds altars to its own identity. But no altar built by the ego can contain the presence of the divine. God is not a possession. God is not a trophy for the enlightened. God is not a point to be proven. God is the breath between your thoughts, the peace underneath your pain, the space that remains when all self-concepts dissolve. You find it not by becoming more, but by becoming still. And in that stillness, you begin to see clearly. You begin to see how much of your suffering came not from life itself, but from your resistance to it, from believing the lie that life was against you, that you were unworthy, that you had to earn love, prove worth, fight for peace. But peace was never a destination. It was always your nature. Love was never a reward. It was always your essence. And God was never out there. God was always the witness, the seer, the still presence within. As this truth anchors deeper, your relationship with life itself transforms. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And begin asking, what part of me is ready to be healed through this? You stop resisting discomfort and begin welcoming it as the doorway to a deeper awareness. You stop fearing loss and begin recognizing every ending as an initiation into expansion. Nothing is wasted when you see through the eyes of the soul. Even your heartbreak becomes holy. Even your failures become fuel. Even your loneliness becomes a sacred invitation, not to fill the void, but to become intimate with it, to rest in it, to realize that beneath the loneliness is longing, and beneath the longing is love, not the love that comes and goes, but the love that you are. You are not the absence looking for completion. You are the completeness rediscovering itself through this temporary form. And so you begin to live differently, not with the frantic pace of the mind, but with the graceful rhythm of the soul. You begin to trust in timing, to surrender to process, to move not from fear, but from deep inner resonance. You say no, not to reject, but to honor alignment. You say yes, not to please, but to follow joy. You walk away not to escape, but to return to yourself. And in doing so, you begin to see the world not as a battlefield, but as a reflection. Not as a place to conquer, but as a mirror to awaken you. Every interaction becomes a chance to remember. Every trigger becomes a chance to release. Every breath becomes a chance to return home. And what is home? Home is the place within you that needs no validation. Home is the truth that has no opposite. Home is not somewhere you arrive. Home is where you live when you are no longer pretending to be anything but what you are, a spark of the divine wrapped in human form, here for a blink of eternity to remember what cannot be forgotten. You are not here to suffer. You are here to wake up. You are here to love, not as a strategy, but as a state of being. You are here to touch the fabric of life with reverence, to speak with sincerity, to walk with integrity, to listen deeply, and to give freely from the well of your soul. And in doing so, you become what the world has forgotten, a living presence of the sacred. You become the prayer. You become the temple. You become the embodiment of what the scriptures tried to describe. Because the greatest scripture is not in a book. It is written in your being. It is etched in your stillness. It is spoken in your silence. And in that silence, you know not with the mind, but with the soul, that there is nothing left to seek. There is only this moment and the divine pulse that animates it. You are not becoming divine. You are remembering that you never stopped being it. And that remembering is enough to change everything. There is a moment, quiet, unannounced, when all seeking falls away, not because the world has changed, but because you have remembered what the world forgot. You no longer stand at the edge of the ocean asking it to show itself. You simply step in, you merge, you dissolve the illusion of separation and become one with the current. This is what it means to return to God, not to a skybound deity, but to the source that has always been flowing in your breath, rising in your intuition, beating in the very center of your chest. And in this return, you discover what cannot be taught, that love is not something you give, receive, or find. Love is what you are. You were not sent here to search for it. You were sent here to embody it. And when you embody love, not the fragile imitation born of fear and control, but the love that includes every part of you, even the broken places, you become a miracle in motion. You become the kind of presence that doesn't need to speak in order to teach. You simply are. And your being reminds others of what they've always been. You walk differently now, not in haste, but in grace. You listen differently now, not to answer, but to feel. You speak differently now, not to impress, but to align. You live not from a desperate desire to prove your worth, but from a quiet knowing that you are the breath of God in human form. There is nothing to defend. There is nothing to fix. There is only this presence unshaken, unconditioned, and untouched by the storms of the mind. You have not arrived at this place through perfection. You arrived through surrender, through the falling away of every illusion that told you God was separate from your breath, from your body, from your being. You are not here to rise above your humanity. You are here to bring divinity into it, into the chaos, into the relationships, into the heartbreak, the joy, the tension, the ordinary moment, because that is where God lives. Not just in the mountaintops and temples, but in the mundane, in the unseen, in the imperfect. And you are the sacred bridge. You are the place where heaven and earth meet. Not someday, now, in this breath, in this body, in this life. So stop waiting for a sign. You are the sign. Stop waiting for permission. You are the permission. Stop waiting for someone to save you. You are the remembering that saves the world. Not through might, not through noise, but through presence, through peace, through the quiet, unwavering embodiment of the truth that has no opposite, that God has never been outside, that God is not in the sky, that God is not in some distant realm waiting for your perfection. God is here. God is now. God is within your choices, within your silence, within the love you extend when no one is watching, within the courage to forgive when the world says hate, within the softening when your ego wants to harden, within the breath you take when you choose to return to the stillness that has always held you. You don't need to transcend the world. You need to infuse it with your light. Let the divine radiate through your laughter, through your tears, through your vulnerability and truth. Let it pour through your presence like a sacred current. Let it touch every room you enter, not because you're trying, but because you're finally being who you are. You are not a seeker anymore. You are a rememberer. And the memory is no longer distant. It is here. It is now. It is you. So walk gently, boldly, truthfully. Let your life be your prayer. Let your breath be your altar. Let your love be your message. And when the world forgets, and it will be the one who remembers. Remember that every person is carrying the same spark, even if they have buried it. Remember that every conflict is a call for love, not for war. Remember that your past is not a prison, but a portal. Remember that this moment, yes, this very one, is sacred. You are not here by accident. You are not made of mistakes. You are made of stars, of breath, of ancient light. And when you die, and you will not meet God. You will dissolve into God. You will return to what you never left. But until that day, let every step you take be a celebration of the truth you've remembered. That God is not outside. It's the energy inside. And it always has been. And it always will be. Now breathe. Smile. You are home. You are free. You are divine.
There will come a time in your life when the mirror can no longer lie to you. A moment when you no longer rush to your reflection seeking approval, validation, or some borrowed beauty reflected back from the gaze of someone else. A moment when the echo of all your chasing will meet the silence of your soul, and in that silence you'll remember you've been seeking in the wrong direction all along. You weren't meant to beg for love. You were born to be it. Love, in its truest form, has never been something to earn or plead for. It is not something that gets traded, bartered, or handed out by someone else like a reward. It is not measured by attention or withheld like punishment. Love is not a performance. It is not a negotiation. It is your origin. It is your essence. It is what you are, beneath the noise, beyond the past, before the wounds were even named. You are not missing love. You are missing the awareness that it has always been within you. Every time you search for it in someone else's approval, you abandon the infinite source already pulsing quietly in your own heart. Every time you begged for someone to stay, you forgot that no one leaves you but your own belief, that you needed them to complete you. No one can abandon you except the version of yourself that was never truly you. We live in a world obsessed with finding the one. But what if the one you were meant to find was yourself? Not the version shaped by society, not the identity patched together from rejection, comparison, and shame, but the soul underneath the timeless being who came into this life whole, radiant, and completely free. The real tragedy is not that others fail to love us. The real tragedy is when we fail to remember that we never needed them to. Your soul did not incarnate to earn love. Your soul came to express it. You are not here to be chosen. You are here to awaken to the truth that you were never unchosen in the first place. There is nothing to prove, nothing to strive for. You don't need to impress, seduce, or convince anyone of your worth, because your worth is not a question. It is the answer. It is the constant. It is the silent light that has never left you. So why do we beg? Why do we lower our voice, dim our light, twist ourselves into shapes just to be accepted? It is because somewhere along the way we were taught to believe that love is conditional, that it is scarce, that it must be earned by pleasing, performing, or pretending. And in doing so, we abandoned our own power. We handed our divine worth over to the fickle opinions of the world, forgetting that no one can truly love you until you love yourself enough to stop seeking their permission to exist. To beg for love is to forget who you are. It is to kneel before illusions and ask them to define you. It is to place your sacred identity into the hands of someone else's broken perception. And let me be clear, no matter how loving someone else may be, they cannot give you what you've denied yourself. Even the purest love cannot fill a soul that has become a stranger to itself. You cannot drink from someone else's cup and expect it to quench the thirst of your own inner emptiness. That thirst must be met at the well of your own soul. Healing begins the moment you stop outsourcing your self-worth. The moment you stop performing for love like a child on a stage and instead sit quietly with yourself and ask, what am I still trying to earn that was already mine when I arrived? What am I still chasing that I've never actually lost? Who taught me that love had to come from out there? You see, every time you choose yourself truly, wholly, unapologetically, you are no longer asking others to do what you are now doing for yourself. And when that happens, something powerful is set in motion. The love you give yourself becomes a frequency, a signal, a divine mirror. And everything in the universe begins to reflect that vibration back to you, not because you demanded it, but because you aligned with it. You stopped begging, you started being. Being love is very different than seeking love. When you are being love, you are no longer trying to extract it from others. You are radiating it from your center. You are becoming the source. And the irony of this shift is that the very love you once chased begins to find you naturally, effortlessly, not because you finally became enough, but because you finally stopped trying to prove that you weren't. There are no conditions to divine love. It doesn't ask for credentials. It doesn't check your history. It doesn't care about the mistakes you've made or the scars you carry. In fact, it whispers, come exactly as you are. You've always been enough. And if that voice has grown faint in your life, it's not because it left, it's because you stopped listening. You started tuning in to the loud noise of the world instead of the quiet truth of the soul. But that voice, that sacred whisper of wholeness, it's still there, beneath the pain, beneath the story, beneath the masks and roles and desperate attempts to be loved. It's waiting for you to return to yourself, to stop performing and start remembering, to stop begging and start becoming, to stop chasing and finally rest in the love that never left. Let this be the moment you return to your own heart. Not as a concept, not as an affirmation, but as a lived experience. Let this be the breath where you stop negotiating your worth and start honoring your divinity. You are not the broken pieces someone walked away from. You are not the rejection that stung or the silence that haunted you. You are the soul who survived, the one who still believes even after everything in love. And that belief, it's not naive, it's sacred. It means you haven't given up on the truth. It means you are still connected to your source, no matter how distant you felt. So do not mourn the love that didn't stay. Celebrate the wisdom it left behind. Do not mourn the ones who couldn't see you. Honor the clarity they gave you. Every closed door was a redirection. Every unanswered call was an invitation to call yourself home. And perhaps the most tender truth of all is this: you don't need to be healed before you are worthy of love. You don't need to be finished to be held. You don't need to be perfect to be embraced. You simply need to be present with yourself, to stop abandoning yourself emotionally every time discomfort rises, to sit beside your own wounds and not treat them like problems to be fixed, but like stories waiting to be understood. That is how you begin to give yourself the love you've been begging others to give you. Not with force, not with performance, but with presence. Presence is the medicine the soul has been craving. Not attention, not validation, not another text from someone whose love is a currency of confusion. What you're yearning for is to feel at home inside your own being, to walk into the rooms of your heart and not feel like a trespasser, to no longer flinch from your own gaze. When you choose to become emotionally present with yourself, when you say, I see you, I hear you, I won't leave you, that is when the begging ends. Because you are no longer empty, you are finally home. And when you are home within, the world stops feeling like a battlefield. People stop being enemies or saviors. They just become mirrors. And you begin to recognize that the ones who withheld their love were simply reflecting the love you had not yet fully claimed for yourself. They weren't the source of your pain. They were the spotlight on your hidden beliefs. The real ache was never their rejection. It was your own silent agreement that you deserved it. You do not deserve crumbs. You do not deserve to be almost loved, nearly chosen, conditionally embraced. The love you give yourself must be a feast, not a ration. It must be unconditional, not because you've never faltered, but because your soul has never ceased to be whole. The ego is the one that counts flaws and keeps score. But your soul, it only knows how to love without hesitation. It only knows how to pour, not barter. And when you align with that part of yourself, You stop participating in relationships that require you to shrink in order to stay. To give yourself love is to reclaim your spiritual authorship. It is to take the pen back from the hands of fear and begin rewriting the script you've been performing. A script that said you had to earn your place. That said you were lovable only when quiet, only when pretty, only when small, only when useful. But the soul doesn't work that way. The soul says, you are loved when you are messy. You are loved when you're lost. You are loved when you forget. You are loved, period. And that period is everything. It is the end of the search. It is the exhale after years of holding your breath. It is the stillness that returns when the storm of self-rejection finally passes. Because all the chasing, all the pleasing, all the pretending, it was never love. It was survival. It was the desperate strategy of a soul that forgot it was already whole. But once you remember, once you taste the peace of no longer needing to be anyone but who you are, you will wonder why you ever searched anywhere else. There is no healing more powerful than becoming your own safe place. No relationship more sacred than the one you nurture with yourself. Not out of ego, but out of devotion. Not out of isolation, but out of integration. When you hold space for yourself, the world holds space for you. When you stop abandoning your own needs, you stop tolerating the emotional starvation that once felt normal. And what once felt like love, the highs, the lows, the confusion will no longer move you. Because truth is quiet, love is calm, and you will have become both. And it is from this state of inner union that you begin to attract a new kind of relationship, not based on dependency, not fueled by fear, not designed to fill your emptiness, but one that mirrors the wholeness you've cultivated. One that doesn't complete you, but complements you. One that doesn't distract from your healing, but dances with it. And until you've met yourself in that way, every connection will be a test of your worth rather than a celebration of your being. So when you find yourself begging, stop, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, what am I trying to get that I am not giving? What story have I resurrected that says I must chase to be cherished? And in that moment, forgive yourself. Forgive the years you spent knocking on closed doors. Forgive the times you whispered, please love me, to people who didn't even know how to love themselves. Forgive the inner child who didn't know better. She was only doing what she thought was required to survive. But now you know better. And with knowing comes freedom. With freedom comes responsibility. The responsibility to choose yourself, not in defiance of others, but in remembrance of your truth. You are not here to be rescued. You are here to be revealed. You are not incomplete. You are in the process of unbecoming everything that taught you otherwise. The journey was never about finding love. It was about remembering that you are it. There is a softness that returns when you stop begging, a peace that rises when you let go of the need to be needed. It doesn't mean you stop loving others. It means you love them from fullness, not from hunger, from overflow, not from lack. You become the tree that no longer chases the rain because you've discovered the river within. You stop waiting for someone else to come and water your roots. You begin to bloom from the inside out. And this inner bloom cannot be undone by rejection. It does not wither when others walk away. Because it is not fed by attention. It is not sustained by performance. It is nourished by presence, self-compassion, and divine truth. This kind of love is immune to drama, immune to manipulation, immune to the games that once held you captive. Because once you have met yourself in your own heart, no counterfeit connection can satisfy you again. Let the ache remind you, not of what you've lost, but of what you are ready to claim. Let the loneliness guide you, not to desperation, but to deeper intimacy with yourself. Every longing is a messenger. Every trigger, a teacher. Every disappointment, an initiation. They are not signs that love has left you. They are signs that your soul is calling you back. Back to the place where love is not earned, but embodied. Keep breathing with this rhythm of remembrance. Let each breath be a prayer. I am worthy. I am whole. I am already loved. Let that be the mantra that rewrites your story. Not because you're trying to convince yourself, but because deep down you already know. You've always known. It's just that now you're ready to live it. And now, as you settle into this sacred remembrance, something profound begins to shift inside you. Not loud, not sudden, but as gentle as a sunrise washing away the long night. You begin to see that every unmet expectation, every heartbreak, every silence that once screamed abandonment was never about them. It was always the universe whispering, return to yourself. They cannot give you what you are still withholding from your own heart. And in that holy returning, you start to listen differently. You begin to hear the sound of your soul, not the noise of your fears, not the echoes of your childhood pain, but the quiet, unshakable voice of your eternal self. The voice that doesn't yell, but guides. The voice that says, you don't need to chase them, you need to find you. You don't need more attention, you need more alignment. And when you begin to trust that voice more than the fear, more than the history, more than the wounds, you stop clinging to what was never meant to stay. You see, love is not something to hoard. It's something to become. And becoming it means you have to surrender your addiction to being chosen. It means you have to lay down your fear that being alone means being unworthy. Solitude is not emptiness. It's sacred space. It's the inner temple where your truest self finally speaks uninterrupted. And in that space, there is no desperation, only devotion. No groveling, only grace. You begin to notice that your peace no longer flinches in someone else's absence. That your joy no longer rises and falls with how much affection they offer. You become unshakable, not because you've hardened, but because you've healed. You've rooted yourself in truth so deep that the winds of rejection no longer uproot your spirit. You walk away from what doesn't align, not in anger, but in reverence. Because now you love yourself too much to remain where your soul is shrinking. And this is when the universe begins to meet you differently. Not because it changed, but because you did. You raised your vibration from please choose me to I choose me. From I hope I'm enough for them to I am enough. And they are either aligned or not. And the irony is, the more you no longer need to be loved in a certain way, the more love flows to you in the purest ways. Not because you demanded it, but because you've become it. This is the divine law of frequency. You attract what you embody. When you vibrate from fullness, you repel what drains you and magnetize what uplifts you. And love, real love, cannot resist a soul who no longer begs. Because begging is the energy of separation. It says, you are my source. But love, real, divine, conscious love, is found in the energy of union. It says, I am my source, and in that I can meet you as a whole being. You no longer need to be rescued. You are the rescue. You no longer need to be validated. You are the validation. You no longer need to be seen by another in order to see yourself. This is freedom. This is emotional sovereignty. This is what happens when you stop looking outward and begin living inward. When you stop chasing illusions and start anchoring in your own sacred truth. And in this truth, you will walk into rooms differently. You'll speak without shrinking. You'll love without losing yourself. You'll hold space for others without abandoning your own. You will no longer confuse intensity with intimacy. You will no longer interpret mixed signals as a challenge to be deciphered. You will simply recognize misalignment and walk away, not from ego, but from clarity. You will no longer fear being alone. Because now you understand being alone with your soul is the most holy company you'll ever keep. The silence is not a void, it's a doorway. A portal back to your presence, and in that presence, miracles begin to unfold. Not because life suddenly becomes easier, but because you are no longer living from a fractured place. You are living from essence. Let your life become an offering, not to win love, but to express it. Let your joy be unconditional. Let your boundaries be sacred. Let your standards be written in light, not in desperation. You are not hard to love. You are hard to manipulate. You are not intimidating. You are simply no longer abandoning yourself for the sake of being chosen. And that is what makes your energy unshakable, not because you are guarded, but because you are finally grounded. And when the past comes knocking, and it will, you don't need to answer with fear. You can open the door with grace and say, I no longer live there. When the old patterns whisper, you are too much, too difficult, too this or that, you'll respond, I am exactly as I am meant to be, and I am not for shrinking anymore. You'll begin to carry yourself like someone who knows the divine lives within them, because it does. Then let us now complete the journey, not by ending it, but by coming home to where it always began, within you. There is a kind of peace that doesn't arrive like lightning, but like the soft return of your own breath. It doesn't scream or demand applause. It simply settles in deep, sacred, and certain. That peace is what happens when you stop trying to earn your place on this earth. When you stop performing for love that was never meant to be bartered in the first place. When you stop trying to become lovable and realize you already are. You are not a project. You are not an open wound to be endlessly patched up by others. You are not a mistake waiting to be corrected by someone else's approval. You are a living miracle, the breath of God made visible in human form. And the moment you reclaim that truth, the moment you stand in it, not as a concept, but as an embodied reality, you stop begging for love because you finally remember that love was never outside of you. Let this moment be a resurrection. Let it be the moment your old story dies, the story that said you had to chase, perform, or be chosen to matter. Let it be the moment you stop searching for someone else to see your light and instead become the one who holds it with reverence. You no longer need to plead for recognition. You simply need to recognize yourself. You are not here to be filled. You are here to overflow. You are not here to be defined by someone's affection. You are here to radiate your own. You are not here to shrink in the presence of others. You are here to expand in the presence of truth. And truth is this: you were never broken. You were becoming. You were never too much. You were overflowing. You were never hard to love. You were waiting to love yourself first. You have not failed because someone walked away. You have awakened. You have remembered. And in this remembrance, you no longer settle for scraps. You no longer distort yourself to fit the mold of another's limited vision. You become the vessel of love that pours without needing to be refilled by others. Because you have tapped into the infinite well within the source, the silence, the sacred center of your being. And yes, love may still arrive from others. In fact, it will. But it will not arrive because you begged for it. It will arrive because you no longer did, because you aligned, because you embodied, because you finally surrendered the need to be completed, and in doing so, became whole. This is the power of spiritual self-love. It does not isolate you. It connects you to everything. It does not harden you. It frees you. It does not make you superior. It makes you true. When you walk in this kind of love, you become an invitation not for people to fix you, but to meet you as they are. You stop searching for the one and start becoming the one for yourself. And in doing so, you become a mirror for others to remember themselves too. That is the ripple of self-love. It is not selfish. It is sacred. It is not indulgent. It is awakening. You teach the world how to treat you by how you treat yourself. And the world begins to respond not to your words, but to your frequency. That frequency says, I am enough. I am whole. I am no longer available for anything less than truth. And the truth is, you no longer chase what you are, you embody it. You no longer explain yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You no longer try to resurrect connections that were assignments, not destinies. You no longer suffer for the sake of keeping others comfortable. You rise, you rest, you remember. And as you remember, let this be your prayer, not a plea, but a proclamation. I release the story that I must earn love. I release the lie that I am only worthy when needed. I release the identity that was shaped by rejection. I return to my soul. I return to my truth. I return to the knowing that I am love itself. From this day forward, may you walk not in search of love, but in the radiance of it. May you no longer settle for connections that cost you your peace. May you become the sanctuary you once searched for. And may you always remember, the love you were begging for was never in their hands. It was always in yours. And so it is. And so you are.